Hi there, hope you're all doing well. Zombicide White Death has arrived, so it's time to get painting. However, unlike my previous Zombicide games, I won't be speed painting these minis, so there won't actually be a video every week of these ones. To get started, I primed Hou Yi black and got the skin base coat with Barbarian Brawn. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments below. You can also join Discord using the link in the description, where you can hang out, chat and share anything you have been hobbying on. I hope you enjoy the video and find it useful. With the base coat all finished, I can get started on the mid-tone with Dwarven skin. Covering a good chunk of that skin again, I just left the darker tone in the shadowed parts. Any of the recesses that are facing towards the light are also done with this, that way I don't get the muscle islands from just bringing up the raised parts. To finish off the skin, I thinned down some Elven skin and started to bring up the features facing upwards. Because this paint is thinned down, I left the recesses between the muscles just to add a little bit more variation in them, just so they're noticeable. Moving on to base coating a few different areas now, I grabbed burnt umber and went around the hair, straps, base and the gold trim on the belt. Not all of these parts will be painted at the same time, but having a shared shadow colour helps the mini keep it a bit more coherent. The first section to get a highlight is the hair. For this I mixed in some dusty skull and brought up all of these sculpted strands facing upwards. With this colour mix, I went around and base coated the trousers as well, just to get that shadow colour in. Jumping around a bit, I continued working on the trousers with pure dusty skull, going over the majority again. I leave the darker tone in the recessed parts and the shadows. This also goes on in a scratchy way, just to add a little bit of extra texture here. This is then followed up with a little pale yellow mixed in, just to bring up the upper parts of the folds and the sharper edges. Just like the previous step, I applied this in a scratchy style, pushing that texture up a little bit further. With the side quest of the trousers out of the way, I go back to painting the leather straps by mixing burnt umber and bootstrap brown to get that mid-tone in. The straps are then highlighted up using pure bootstrap brown just around the edges and the areas from the light above. For the last of the neutral clothing, which is just the black top and quiver, I mixed some deep grey into matte black and jumped straight into the mid-tone, leaving that black primer in the shadows. Since I won't be putting much of a wash onto the black, I mixed in some deep grey for the highlight, instead of using pure deep grey, which I would then need to use a full strength wash to darken back down just to look black again afterwards. Started on the bright colours now, I grabbed Enchantress purple for the blue and purple parts on the bow, along with a base coat of the clothing hanging from his waist. These cloth parts have a fade moving from the bright blue to a pink, so there'll be a lot of fussing on these parts as I begin mixing in some Eldar Robe and starting from just above halfway and working my way upwards on this point. This mix is also used as a small highlight on the edges of the bow. To get that blend as smooth as possible, I'll do a couple of mixes, adding a little bit more of Eldar Robe as I make my way towards the top. Once I got to the point where the purple wasn't doing much, I switched over to pure Eldar Robe and continued my way up the cloth. With this, I also went around the base coated all of the lighter blue parts of the bow and the scarf. The blue base coating took a while to get done, and I still need to push that blend a little bit further. So to do that and to add a mid-tone on the scarf, I mixed some Seafarer's blue and continued my journey to the bright blue. Just like with the darker blue, I went through a couple of mixes as I make my way towards that bright blue, building up that gradient along the way. Reaching the end of the blue, I used pure Seafarer's blue and gave the scarf a highlight, while just doing the very top of the cloth around the waist. With the blue all finished, I can start working on the other end of the cloth now, along with the inside of the bow that seems to be glowing in the artwork. The first step towards the pink is a 50-50 mix of Enchantress purple and Spectral purple, covering the majority of the areas, just leaving that darker purple along the edges to start that gradient off. The next step is some more Spectral purple thrown into the mix, however I do mix a lot in, so it's almost like a pure Spectral purple covering the middle ground of the pink areas. Since the last mix was pretty much pure Spectral purple, I'm moving on to the next step. I'm mixing in some cyber pink into that Spectral purple. This stage went over just the last little bits of pink, but I leave the edges for that final highlight of pure cyber pink. Now that the bright colours have been done, I can move on to the metallics, starting off with Dune metal over pretty much everything except for the gold trim. Since I'm doing true metallics, I could have just gone for the brightest silver and left it there, but I want to try out layering up some different metallic paints as I go along. Well, by layering up different metallic paints, I actually mean by mixing in some blue steel into that Dune metal first, and then using that as the mid-tone on the armour. To finish up the armour, I went around the edges and brighter parts with pure blue steel. I could have probably pushed this a little bit further by mixing in a brighter silver, but I do like that blue tint that comes with this colour, and it just stopped at this step for that. Since the silver is now finished off, I can start with a small bit of gold around the belt trim, starting off using ancient gold, which doesn't cover too well, but luckily I base coated with burnt umber earlier, and that seems to really help with this step. Getting a small highlight in on the gold, I mixed in some platinum crown and just went over the upper parts. This step is mostly for visual interest more than actually bringing up light values. Finishing off the mini, I quite heavily thinned down some dark tone wash and went over the silver, black and his hair. Because I thinned this down so much, there isn't too much staining as well. The wash just flows into the recesses and adds a little bit of extra contrast. And that will be it for Hou Yi. I'm very happy with how that gradient came out on those bright parts. Although there's always room for improvement, on the tabletop it still looks great and that's good enough for me. As I said earlier in the video, there won't be any weekly Zombicide videos, but I will try to get these out on a somewhat regular basis, just around my usual video schedule. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments below. You can also join Discord using the link in the description, where you can hang out, chat, and share anything you have been hobbying on. For those of you who want to pick up Zombicide for yourselves, there are some affiliate links in the description below. I hope you enjoyed the video and found it useful. If you did, don't forget to drop a like and subscribe for more content. Most importantly though, be kind to each other.